Chapter 1. Build the Inner Citadel. The Stoics called it the inner citadel, a fortified place within, untouchable by insult, immune to lies, indifferent to praise. It wasn't a retreat from life, but a foundation so stable that no chaos could shake it. This citadel isn't built overnight. It's constructed slowly, brick by brick, and each brick is laid through emotional clarity, mental discipline, and deep self-examination. To build your inner citadel is to begin the true work of intelligence, to filter your thoughts, to master your emotions, to choose deliberate response over blind reaction. Every time you pause before speaking, every time you breathe before lashing out, every time you ask yourself, is this within my control? You are sharpening the blade of your mind. You are widening the space between stimulus and response. And in that space, real power is born, not over others, but over the only domain you truly command, your own soul. Self-mastery is not emotional coldness. It's not pretending not to feel. It's the awareness of emotion without being governed by it. The Stoics never denied feeling. They studied it, they named it, they diffused it. When you can name the fire, anger, envy, fear, it loses its ability to burn you. When you see it without judgment, you strip it of its leverage. That awareness becomes a force. That control becomes your armor. Emotional intelligence isn't soft, it's sharp. It's the reason you don't explode under pressure, the reason you can walk through chaos without absorbing it. When you've built your inner citadel, you stop projecting. You stop taking everything personally. You stop chasing validation or fearing rejection. You stop reacting to shadows. Instead, you begin to observe. You watch how people move, how they speak, how they hesitate. You notice their micro-expressions, the flicker of fear, the stiffness of shame, the pause before a lie. Your mind becomes a still lake, reflective, not reactive. You don't speak to be heard. You speak when there's something worth saying. And when you speak, people feel it. Because your words are born from stillness, not impulse. You become unreadable to manipulators, yet you read others with clarity. Not to exploit, but to stay free. You don't need to shout. Your presence says enough. You walk into a room with composure, not performance, and people notice, without knowing why. They sense it, that you've done the work they avoid. You no longer seek applause. You follow your own compass, rooted in principle, not popularity. That's what makes you unshakable. You carry your power quietly, not as secrecy, but as sovereignty. You don't react, you discern. You don't chase, you choose. In a world addicted to attention, your stillness becomes magnetic. You lead without demanding. You influence without forcing. You embody what most only perform. Because clarity is rare, and those who have it lead. The calmest person in the room becomes the one others turn to, not because they're loud, but because they're grounded. True presence doesn't announce itself, it's felt. It steadies the room, it anchors uncertainty. It speaks louder in silence than others do in shouts. This is the first and most crucial step of dangerous intelligence. Self-mastery. Built in silence, sharpened in solitude, proven in chaos. It is not how loud you are that defines you. It is how unmoved you remain. It is the calm in your eyes, the restraint in your actions, the elegance in your pause. Because silence, when rooted in strength, is thunder. Daily practice. Start each morning by journaling your internal state. Identify what emotion dominates your thoughts and why. Pause before reacting. Let stillness become your habit. Eventually, your inner world will no longer be at the mercy of the external one. Chapter 2. Train your mind. Like a warrior, a dangerously smart mind is never passive. It doesn't wait to be taught. It hunts knowledge down. It doesn't sit back. It sharpens itself like a weapon. To train your mind like a warrior is to approach learning with intensity, not convenience. You don't study for grades or praise. You study for survival, for clarity, for command. Every book becomes a weapon. Every conversation, a sparring match. Every mistake, a lesson in disguise. You train not to impress, but to prepare. You watch people's behaviors in line at the store like a tactician observing a battlefield. You analyze tone, posture, and silence like data points in a larger strategy. Nothing is random. Everything is information. The dangerously smart treat attention like a sacred resource. They choose carefully what enters the mind because they know the cost of noise. They don't scroll to escape. They read to sharpen. They listen to understand, not just to reply. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That is the battlefield, your own mind. A warrior of the intellect learns to spot flawed logic, not just in others, but in themselves. They interrogate their own thoughts. They don't let emotions craft false narratives. They don't surrender to assumption. They question with precision, not to doubt everything, but to uncover what's real. Their beliefs are not shields. They are tested weapons. They don't cling to being right. They fear staying wrong. That's why they update their thinking constantly, like sharpening a blade before every battle. You must study logic, study rhetoric, not to argue louder, but to think clearer, to remain calm when manipulation fills the room, to spot the trap before it closes, to dismantle confusion, not with volume, but with structure. Learn how people are swayed, by repetition, by metaphor, by urgency, by fear. Learn how vague language hides motive, how emotion hijacks reason, how charm can camouflage control. Study propaganda, study persuasion, study courtroom speeches, cult recruitment tactics, marketing language, ancient oratory. Dissect how tyrants manipulate crowds, how a single phrase delivered at the right moment shifts belief systems. Language is not just a tool, it's an operating system for the mind. Master it. Don't just call out fallacies, unravel them, let others see them collapse under their own weight. Expose manipulation not with moral panic, but with calm dissection. Let your clarity do the work, because the dangerously smart don't scream the truth, they show it, and in showing it, they cannot be dismissed. Daily practice. Choose one logical fallacy each week. Study it. Memorize it, spot it, in arguments, in media, in your own thoughts. Keep a record. Train your mind to see through illusion. Let precision become your discipline. Chapter 3. The Art of Listening and Silent Observation. The person who speaks the most rarely learns the most. As Epictetus reminded us, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, to listen twice as much as we speak. Listening is not passive. It is an active discipline, a sharpened form of intelligence, the quiet collection of data while the world reveals itself. To become dangerously smart, you must become a silent observer, not detached but hyper-aware. You listen not just for what is said, but for what is avoided, not just for sound, but for signal. You pay attention to tone, tempo, and tension, the pauses, the hesitations, the cracks between the words. What words do they repeat? Which ones do they avoid? Does their voice rise when uncertain? Does it soften when guilt emerges? You observe posture. Do their shoulders cave inward under pressure? Do their hands become restless around certain names? Does their breath shorten when they lie? These micro-reactions are second languages, unspoken but loud. Most people leak their truth in gestures. Their discomfort spills in pacing. Their shame trembles in silence. To catch these signals, you must be still, not just physically, but mentally. You must stop rehearsing your reply while others are speaking. You must stop treating conversations like performances. Instead, become a student of the moment. Observation isn't just about body language, it's about energy, about the emotional current beneath the surface of words. You read guilt, you sense pride, you notice fear not because it's stated, but because it shows. And when you do speak, your words carry weight, not because you say much, but because you say what matters. You respond not just to what was said, but to what was meant. You make people feel seen, not by flattery but by accuracy. That's how trust is earned in silence. That's how respect is built through speech. In a world where everyone is talking to be heard, you become the one who listens to understand. And that makes you dangerous, because you see patterns others miss. You understand people before they understand themselves. You calm rooms simply by being present, because your presence observes, processes, and reflects. You don't dominate conversations. You anchor them. You don't interrupt. You clarify. You don't react. You refine. You don't speak to fill space. You speak to give it meaning. You hold your silence like a blade, unsheathed only when necessary. And when you do speak, it slices through confusion like precision steel, because your words have been filtered through stillness. They are deliberate, measured, exact. People lean in, not because you're loud, but because you've earned their attention through restraint. You are the calm eye in the center of the storm. You don't force presence, you become it. Daily practice. In your next conversation, speak less than the other person. Observe. Study their energy, their rhythm, their emotional leaks. Listen not just with your ears, but with your entire awareness. When you respond, do so only after you fully understand. Let clarity, not ego, shape your reply. Chapter 4. Read, learn, absorb, everything. The Stoics were philosophers, yes, but also students of law, politics, nature, war, and the cosmos. They didn't divide their knowledge, they connected it. They understood that truth echoes across disciplines, that a principle in science could clarify a moral dilemma, that history could shape leadership, that the patterns in nature reflect those of the soul. To be dangerously smart, you must become endlessly curious, not out of obligation, but hunger. Let your curiosity burn through indifference. Let it turn every mistake into data, every question into a door, every subject into a sharpened lens. Read broadly, absorb the technical and the poetic, the sacred and the mechanical. Study philosophy for wisdom, science for clarity, psychology for depth, strategy for navigation. Study religion to grasp collective meaning, mathematics to ground abstraction, art to train perception. Speak with engineers and poets in the same afternoon. Let complexity humble you. Let unfamiliar subjects stretch you. Refuse to hide behind what you already know. Dive into economics, programming, global history, literature, architecture. Study astronomy to remember your scale. Study music theory to understand emotions' rhythm. Study systems, so your thinking becomes structured and adaptable. Build a mental library that fuses insight with execution. You won't just memorize facts. You'll build mental frameworks, not to dominate, but to liberate. Why? Because knowledge is armor. It's insulation against chaos, protection against deceit, and stability in uncertainty. When life breaks others, you'll reorient. When others panic, you'll process. When you're challenged, you'll respond, not react. Knowledge is agility. It turns fear into discernment. It transforms manipulation into puzzles and conflict into opportunity. When someone tries to deceive you, your understanding will dismantle their tactics. Quietly. You won't shout them down. You'll see through them. When someone seeks your counsel, you'll offer precision, not platitudes. Your mind becomes a refuge for others, anchored and prepared. The Stoics pursued this kind of wisdom not for status, but to become better humans. They wrote, reflected, questioned. Even emperors journaled like students. They didn't study to impress, they studied to transform. Let that be your model. Not cleverness, but clarity. Not pride, but preparation. That is the difference between being smart and being dangerous. Practice. Commit to reading one book per month on a subject outside your comfort zone. Track your insights. Draw connections to Stoic thought. Build a mind that is not only informed, but indispensable. Chapter 6. Build the network of the mind. Dangerous intelligence does not grow in isolation. The sharpest minds are not formed in solitude, but sharpened in connection. Even Marcus Aurelius, ruler of an empire, understood this. He referred to the universe as a single living organism, each of us a part of a greater whole. To evolve mentally, you must surround yourself with minds that challenge, provoke, and expand you. Not every connection will sharpen you. Some dull, some distract, some drain. The dangerously smart build networks, not of followers, but of thinkers. Not for attention, but for elevation. They gather minds the way a craftsman gathers tools, each serving a specific purpose. Conversations become a forge. Assumptions are tested. Ideas are sharpened. They don't seek echo chambers. They seek refinement, contradiction, friction, because friction reveals truth. They value disagreement, not as conflict, but as calibration. They don't defend beliefs blindly. They stress test them over and over. They don't crave being right. They crave being aligned with what's real. Your mental network extends beyond your contacts. It's in the books you read, the thinkers you revisit, the mentors you absorb, even if they've been dead for centuries. It's a cathedral of influence, built from voices ancient and modern, a conversation across time. Every great thinker you expose yourself to becomes a part of your counsel. Each idea is another thread in your map of reality. You begin to think in layers, in connections, in patterns. To be dangerously smart is not to hoard brilliance, but to remain humble enough to seek it constantly, to know who to consult, who to study, when to speak, and when to reflect. You don't collect people for clout. You build alliances of clarity. Smart people can answer questions. Dangerously smart people ask better ones, and they know exactly who to ask. They know that a single question, posed to the right mind at the right time, can alter an entire life. So they curate their circle with care. They choose proximity not based on comfort, but on growth. They prioritize challenge over flattery. They seek the few who sharpen them, not the many who applaud them. And when they walk into battle, mental, emotional, or strategic, they don't go alone. They carry with them 1,000 perspectives, a quiet library of voices, a living strategy forged through intellectual communion. Daily practice. Build your personal counsel. Choose 5 minds, living or dead, that challenge and refine your thinking. Rotate through their works. Compare their principles. Let them debate inside your journal. Let their ideas shape your decisions, because wisdom doesn't grow in isolation, it's cultivated through connection. Chapter 6. Build the network of the mind. No mind, however brilliant, becomes formidable in isolation. Even the sharpest blade dulls without friction. The Stoics understood this. Marcus Aurelius often reflected on the universe as a unified body, each person a vital part. He knew growth demands interaction, but not all interaction leads to elevation. The dangerously smart are deliberate in their connections. They don't collect people, they cultivate minds. They build a network, not of status, but of stimulation. Conversations become arenas where ideas are tested, refined, and sometimes destroyed. They don't seek agreement, they seek refinement. They welcome intellectual resistance the way warriors welcome sparring partners. A real mental network isn't made of comfort, it's built on tension. The kind of tension that sharpens thought and demands clarity. You must learn to seek those who challenge you, who stretch your assumptions, who confront your blind spots, who elevate your perspective through friction. The dangerously smart are not threatened by disagreement. They're sharpened by it. They treat every exchange, whether with a mentor, an adversary, or a passing stranger, as a potential insight waiting to be extracted. They are never just talking. They are always observing, gathering, integrating. Your network also includes the thinkers you've never met, the philosophers you revisit, the books that haunt you, the words that echo days after you've read them. These voices become part of your mental architecture. They build scaffolding inside your judgment. They become reference points in moments of uncertainty. To be dangerously smart is to build a mental map, one that spans disciplines, timelines, ideologies. You think like a strategist, not a specialist. You draw from science and poetry, from myth and machinery, from rhetoric and reason. You don't just read, you connect. You don't chase brilliance, you build a council. When faced with a complex decision, you summon their perspectives. You don't guess blindly, you consult centuries. You rotate through minds the way a commander rotates tactics. You read them not to admire, but to absorb, to extract, to adapt. You don't need crowds, you need clarity. Because when the time comes to act, your decisions won't be random. They'll be layered, informed, anchored in something deeper than opinion. Integrated wisdom. Daily practice. Select 5 minds, living or dead, whose thinking challenges your own. Read them, write with them, debate them in your journal. Ask how they would approach your current challenges. Let their ideas sharpen your clarity. Over time, your mental network will become your greatest weapon and your quietest strength. Chapter 7. Control the frame. Command the room. He who defines the frame defines the outcome. The Stoics understood this without ever naming it. They didn't let others decide the rules of engagement. When insulted, they reframed the attack. When challenged, they redirected the energy. When surrounded by chaos, they chose stillness, not submission, but control. They never played emotional chess with unstable minds. Their power came not from dominance, but from detachment. They didn't react, they reframed. They didn't argue, they redirected attention. To be dangerously smart is to master the art of framing, to define the lens before others can distort it, to shift the narrative from drama to direction, from blame to responsibility, from emotion to clarity. You don't need to speak first. You don't need to speak loud. You need to shape what the moment means. That's how power moves quietly, through interpretation. It's not about overpowering the room. It's about influencing how the room sees itself. Others get trapped in details. You see the context. Others debate what happened. You ask, what does it mean? Others argue over surface problems. You find the invisible structure beneath them and change it. Frame mastery is perception mastery, and perception is the foundation of influence. The dangerously smart never enter a room trying to control others. They enter already controlling interpretation. They guide the conversation not with force, but with precision. They shift tension into reflection, conflict into focus. When others react, they pause. When others escalate, they dissect. They sense loaded questions, false dilemmas, and rhetorical traps, and dismantle them with quiet grace, not ego. Their influence doesn't raise its voice, it reverberates. To control the frame is to shape meaning, and meaning shapes emotion, and emotion shapes behavior. That is power, subtle, strategic, unmistakable. You don't control people, you control narrative, and narrative moves people. You shift the emotional current of the room by shifting what the moment represents. You reframe fear as focus, rejection as redirection, setbacks as refinement. You don't erase suffering, you assign it a higher purpose, and once pain has meaning, it loses control over you. This is what the Stoics did. They didn't deny adversity, they rewrote its role. Delay became discipline. Loss became training. Criticism became a mirror. They mastered their internal frame first, and so they reshaped the external world by default. Because the most powerful person in the room isn't the one speaking the most, it's the one defining the moment. They tell a better story. They frame the conflict differently, and others follow, because the new frame makes more sense. Influence isn't about volume, it's about vision. It's about meaning. It's about knowing how to see what others missed and naming it in a way they can't ignore. Daily practice. In your next disagreement, don't argue. Reframe. Shift the ground beneath the debate. Before responding, ask yourself, what's really being assumed here? Look for the premise beneath the surface. Gently redirect the conversation toward clarity, not victory. Let your tone slow down the room. Let your calmness reset the rhythm. Ask questions that expose, not trap. Speak not to corner, but to open new thinking. Influence isn't about being understood first. It's about being understood best, and people trust the voice that clarifies what they couldn't name. Chapter 8. Stay dangerous. Stay curious. Curiosity is the mind's fire. Without it, intellect cools into arrogance. Sharpness dulls into rigidity. Conviction hardens into dogma. The Stoics never lost their sense of wonder. They questioned everything: life, death, fate, the gods, their own thoughts, and the patterns of desire that ruled humanity. They understood that to stop asking was to start decaying. To be dangerously smart, you must remain endlessly curious. Not aimless or scattered, but focused and intentional, driven by the question, what am I not seeing yet? Curiosity keeps you agile. It sharpens belief through challenge. It dismantles assumptions, not to shame you, but to prepare you. Beliefs that have never been tested are not strength. They are habits dressed up as truth. But beliefs, refined through friction, through scrutiny, contradiction, and new light, become wisdom. The dangerously smart don't just seek new ideas. They interrogate their old ones. They revisit their conclusions. They update their maps. They treat insight like architecture, constantly reinforcing, adjusting, rebuilding when necessary. They are not afraid to be wrong. They are afraid to become irrelevant. Comfort is their enemy. They would rather be disturbed than stagnant, rather be questioned than become numb. Their principles are not brittle. They are forged through fire. Not protected by ego, but strengthened by humility. Curiosity is also a shield. It guards against complacency, the slow decay of unused awareness. It warns you when your certainty has turned to blindness, when you've stopped growing but haven't noticed yet. The moment you believe you know enough is the moment your decline begins, because the world keeps changing, and intelligence that refuses to evolve becomes obsolete. In a world moving at the speed of chaos, the curious mind doesn't just survive. It adapts, it outlasts, it leads. The Stoics prized adaptability, and curiosity was the engine that kept them fluid. They didn't cling to belief, they tested it. They didn't defend insight, they refined it, again, and again, and again. Curiosity isn't the start of wisdom, it's the renewal of it. A curious mind is not just prepared, it's ready. Ready to shift, to stretch, to pivot, to endure. It can't be trapped by ideology, frozen by fear, or manipulated by dogma. It is too flexible to break, too aware to be fooled, too alive to be controlled. Weekly practice. At the end of each week, write down 3 things you've learned, and 3 things you're still uncertain about. Don't rush to solve them. Sit with the questions. Let curiosity guide your attention. Let wonder fuel your discipline, because the mind that keeps asking never stops growing, and the one who keeps growing becomes untouchable. Chapter 9. Fortify the body, sharpen the edge. The Stoics never separated the body from the mind. They understood, centuries before science confirmed it, that physical strength reinforces mental strength. Epictetus, though physically crippled, taught discipline through endurance. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, trained both his thoughts and his form, because they knew a weak body undermines a strong mind. To be dangerously smart is to treat the body as an extension of the mind, a vessel that carries willpower, not just weight. You don't train for image, you train for integrity. A sharp sword means nothing in a cracked sheath. Mental clarity demands physical resilience. When your body is conditioned, your mind doesn't fear fatigue. You think under stress. You lead under pressure. You endure without panic. Strength becomes more than muscle. It becomes message. It's proof that you can act even when it's hard, that you show up even when it hurts, that your comfort never outranks your commitment. This has nothing to do with vanity and everything to do with readiness. You are less likely to be manipulated when your body is under your command. You move with control. You breathe with precision. You carry stillness in your frame. A fit body signals something deeper: discipline, restraint, commitment, evidence of sacrifice, not self-indulgence. It's not about dominating others. It's about showing your mind that it has already conquered the flesh. And when your body obeys your mind, fear begins to fade, not because pain disappears, but because you no longer flinch when it knocks. You become reliable in crisis, calm when others shake, present when others scatter, focused when others fade. That presence, the kind that doesn't collapse under pressure, can't be faked. It must be forged. Daily practice. Establish a physical discipline that is non-negotiable, not for performance, not for approval, but for mastery. You don't need to chase records. You need consistency, effort, sweat. You need a daily ritual that demands something from you, physically and mentally. Push your limits, stretch your tolerance. Let every set, every step, every drop of sweat become a meditation on willpower. Train not for the body alone, but for the spirit behind it. Let your strength be a reminder. You can do what's difficult. You can keep going when it hurts. You are not fragile. Pain is not punishment. It is feedback, a signal, a sharpening stone. Use it, embrace it, transform it, because the stronger your body becomes, the more grounded your mind will be. And in that union, you become something rare. A force of intellect and endurance, unshakable, steady, prepared. Chapter 10. Master yourself. No one can touch you. This is the final form of dangerous intelligence, not dominance, not control over others, but self-mastery. When your thoughts are disciplined, your speech intentional, your habits aligned, your time respected, your body trained, there is nothing left in you that the world can exploit. You become untouchable, not because you are invincible, but because you've taken full command of the only thing you ever truly owned, yourself. You no longer chase approval. You're immune to flattery, resistant to insult, independent of praise. You become what the Stoics envisioned: a fortress in motion, principled, grounded, unmoved. This is not coldness. This is clarity. It's the ability to respond with intention instead of reacting with impulse, to act with force when needed, and to hold your silence when it's wiser. People ask how to be powerful. The Stoics showed us. You don't gain power by controlling others. You gain it by refusing to be controlled by anything. The world can tempt, provoke, distract, but you don't flinch, you don't fold, you don't forget who you are. The one who commands himself doesn't need permission, doesn't need validation. He becomes sovereign, not above others, but above chaos. Mastery is not perfection. It is alignment. It is knowing your principles and living by them when it's hardest. It is action that reflects depth, not ego. It is restraint that reflects strength, not fear. A master of self doesn't waste energy. They don't leak power in arguments, gossip, or performance. They correct themselves before anyone else can. They don't need applause because they're not performing. They don't seek attention because they're focused. They don't get baited because their emotions are no longer exposed wires. They've burned off what's weak, polished what's useful, and buried what no longer serves. Daily practice. Audit yourself. Where do you lose control? Where do you act from impulse instead of principle? Where do you waste time, energy, discipline? Choose one habit, just one, and make it obedient. Not once, but daily. Mastery isn't built in breakthroughs, it's built in repetition. Each small victory reinforces the next. Each refined behavior makes the fortress stronger. Each moment of restraint carves a deeper sense of authority within you. Because once you master yourself, no one else can.